I made a lot of mistakes because my personality type fixates on things, right? So I tend to obsess over certain things. When I lock onto something, I go at it 100%. My name is Kaleb Streeter, and this is my story. Life was good. Everything was going smoothly, but I should have recognized that it was almost too good. When I got into real estate, I had a target to sell 75 homes my first year, and that became my 12-month focus. And I actually came home and I said to Brittany, I really want to achieve this goal. It's going to take hard work and some sacrifice. You may not see me a whole lot, but you support me in this goal and I can give it 100%. And she said yes. So with her blessing, I hit the streets and I averaged between 8 to 14 hours on the road a day, 6 days a week. And I hit it. I hit 77 homes, but I just fixated on it. But in hindsight, I prioritized work over my family. Now, obviously, with where I'm at and the journey I went on and all the things that I came through, my priorities have changed. It took a major life event for me to change my focus. From the outside looking in, we had the perfect life. We had a business that was successful and growing. And, we had a home that we loved. Our 3 boys are healthy and happy. Just at the snap of a finger, it all stopped. It all came crashing down. And so I went from 0 to hero in 6 years, and then in a matter of 12 months, from hero to 0. It all started May 3rd, 2022. I went into the hospital for an operation, and when I left the hospital, they sent me home, and I was in excruciating pain. I just remember being in so much more pain than what I was in when I went into the hospital. I was hopped up on some strong stuff, and I had, previous to the pills, an IV hooked up to fentanyl, and that was in my system too. And through all the powerful drugs, I was pretty loopy, but I was in so much pain. So I didn't think something was right, but I didn't know. Through ultrasounds and multiple opinions in multiple countries, it doesn't look like that was the right move, but it also wasn't unreasonable at the time to think that this would be a good operation because it does have a high success rate. I just ended up being a statistic. It went wrong. I couldn't walk without pain. I couldn't sit or drive without having to favor one side. And as I started to accommodate for this, I ended up throwing my back out because I was compensating for a lack of abdominal muscle. So now I had issues in the front and the back while trying to run a business and be a good husband and be a good father. It started to weigh on me, and I became a little bit impatient because I was getting scared after multiple visits to multiple doctors and them telling me, you're fine, give it another 2 weeks. Well, May turned into June, June turned into July, and I saw a urologist in July, and he did a quick physical exam and said, I don't know what to tell you, everything looks normal. Let's put you on some anti-inflammatories and report back to me. Well, they did nothing. The pain started to get worse and worse. I didn't know that it was starting to affect my mental health. I don't have a history of mental health, so I didn't know. I just thought that I was ornery because I was in pain. And it's the only thing throughout the night, in the morning, during the day, as I go to bed. It affected my life 24 hours a day. And when I say pain, I don't mean like a numbing, throbbing pain. I'm talking an electrical current, nerve pain, shooting through my lower abdomen all day. I had some points of relief that lasted minutes at a time, so intermittently it would be an understatement to say that there was any relief at all. But I lived for those moments when they came, and you could never predict when they would come. I decided to take matters into my own hand and go down to the US to pay for healthcare down there. And being in a financial position and in a vocational position in which I can take the time and I can afford to do this, I was really grateful for that, really blessed for that. So I did go to Buffalo, and I found a urologist that decided to take my case on. But through multiple ultrasounds and kidney x-rays and physical exams and going up to the next level of urology and having a nerve conduction study done and some sort of reverse MRI where they inject radioactive material in your veins and they collect imaging that way, they found nothing. The two of them came in the room and they're like, "We don't know what to tell you, kid." To say I was discouraged, isn't really the right word. So with my head hung low, I drove home and I said, okay, well, where do I go next? I got a call in August from the team down in Buffalo, and they said, we've been conversing and strategizing and seeing as we don't really know what's causing this, we'd like to do an operation. Would be a major surgery in which we remove everything. I was in such a bad place mentally and physically that any solution was the one I was going to run at first. I got that call mid-August. By the end of August, I had that follow-up appointment with the local urologist, and he said, "I see you've been visiting the States. I see they want to perform a radical orchiectomy and amongst, a gonadal vein excision robotically. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. The best I can do is refer you to the guy in Canada. His name's Dr. Jarvie." I got a referral to Dr. Jarvie, but of course I was going full steam ahead at this point. Between August and December, I was planning on getting the surgery the day after Christmas. So I had now, for the first time, a little bit of hope. Like, just a little bit. I told my friends, I have a surgery date. They're gonna fix it. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be short a few parts, but c'est la vie. I can live without pain. I can live with, everything that's gonna transpire from this surgery. But things got worse. Things did not get better. Running was actually the one thing that brought me an unspeakable joy. I said, you know what? This is gonna be the thing that's gonna help me through this until my surgery. So a friend of mine encouraged me to sign up for a half marathon. I'm like, originally thinking, not a chance. The most I've ever run is, at this point, 14 kilometers, and that was very tough. Now that I have this booked, I have to do it. So I started training, and I learned how to run more efficiently. And I competed in my first half marathon and achieving a time I was so proud of. And the feeling of euphoria, the chills, the warmth that overtakes your body is supernatural. It was so powerful and so enriching. It then became my favorite day of the year. It became my favorite memory of 2022. It became the source of my motivation and my excitement. When I got back to work, I could not stop talking about it. I mean, we were just talking about running a silly race. It was everything for me. And after that, I decided I'm gonna seek out things that bring me joy, because I can't be feeling as down as I'm feeling all this time, still not realizing what was going on. The running was a very good thing for me, but after my half marathon, I injured myself. So I had to give it up. And I just thought, could anything else go wrong? Throughout all of this, People are seeing the team selling homes and they're seeing sold signs go up and just listeds, but we were not performing at max capacity. I was not leading at max capacity. I wasn't showing up as the best version of myself because I was very broken, but I still tried. I showed up every day, even though I had brain fog and a loss of focus. November and December were the two hardest months for me. Leading up to the surgery, I really started to decline in my mental health. Things at home got worse. My work went from bad to worse. Even though I was in the office every day, I wasn't selling real estate at all. I would go in and I would stare at my computer and I would do nothing and I'd get nothing accomplished. I ran on autopilot for 2 months at the end of the year, and I hid very well. At our client party, I was in terrible pain and only my assistant knew. At any moment, I could have broke down and cried just from pain. And it was very distracting, but I did show up and push through it thinking, December's coming, December's coming. Hey Caleb, it's such and such hospital in Williamsville, New York. And we're gonna be performing your surgery, and it's the estimate department here. And it went from 8 to 20,000 US. We could have pulled it off, but we just didn't think it was wise. This wasn't a guarantee. So they hadn't said, we know the problem, we're gonna fix it. They said, we don't know the problem, so we're just gonna pull out all the parts in the surrounding area and hope you get better. So, at best, we're looking at a 60-40 success rate. And for 20,000 US, it just wasn't something I wanted to risk. So I increased the dosage of the medication I was on for the nerve pain, which I believe played a role in my mental health as well. And I just decided to manage it by taking more pills. At this point, I started to realize that I did have a mental health problem. This is when it really kicked in, is when I started thinking about suicide every day. It was cheaper than surgery, and it was a guarantee not to be in pain anymore. But, I had my wits about me at that time, and I'm like, this is not the answer, but it seems so attractive right now. I didn't have the courage to kill myself. I was just hopeful something would happen to me. I don't think anybody knew that I was battling this inside, and not even my own family. But I did open up and share with them in mid-December that this is kind of what I was battling and what I was thinking. And of course everybody understood, but they perhaps maybe at that point didn't take it as serious because I didn't know either. It took a major toll on my marriage. This mental illness stripped me of my best qualities, of all my good qualities, and what was left was not a good man, not a good husband, not a good father. And so my wife and I separated on January 5th. And I thought, okay, I've hit rock bottom. I've hit rock bottom. One thing I've learned throughout this journey is that there's no such thing as just one rock bottom. I moved out on January 5th, and on January 6th, I was a zombie, and I was in my office when I received a miraculous call from my family doctor. And I was just slouched in my chair, and I had no will to live. I had no capacity to work. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I just started crying. And I mustered out the most meek no ever. And she said, "Well, who's around that can take you to the hospital?" I'm not asking, I'm telling you that you need to go to the hospital. So I'm either gonna call a family member or an ambulance. But you're not well, and I can tell, and you need help. So I blacked out, and I woke up to my parents coming upstairs, sitting with me for a little bit, and then taking me into the emergency department in Aurelia. So I get into the emergency department, and the triage nurse says, what brings you in today? And I lost my ability to speak, and I went mute for 4 hours. Thank goodness my mom was there to say, we think it has something to do with his physical pain affecting his mental health. And she was a godsend. She is an angel, end of story. And she really had my back, and she did all the talking. I couldn't talk. Kaleb, what's wrong? I just remember tears going down my face, and that is the only thing that I was capable of doing, was shedding tears. And I stared blankly at this woman who was so desperately trying to get anything out of me. She says, I'll be right back. And she goes and consults with a doctor and a psychiatrist. And she comes back and she says, you're not doing good. We're worried for you. We heard you've had suicidal ideation, so we've made a judgment call, and we're gonna keep you here at the hospital. At that point, was escorted upstairs. They took everything from me, gave me a gown, no shoes, no socks, no phone, no nothing. Having been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, I didn't realize that it can grip you so hard that you 100% are incapable of pulling yourself out on your own. I never knew anything about mental health before. So for me, I thought it was just, you're in a bad mood today, or you're sad, okay, think positive things. At that point, you need professional help, because advice from people that haven't experienced it themselves or aren't trained in mental health, it actually makes things worse. Makes you upset to hear people. It gets better. Lots of people come through this. Just pick yourself up and stay positive. Think positive things. You have a beautiful family. You've got a great job. That's good advice, but it's only absorbable with a healthy brain. I lost my will to live. I wasn't thinking about how that would impact my kids or my wife. I wanted to die so bad, at a frequency of every 30 minutes. I had to learn to convince myself to live every 30 minutes of every day. And the only reprieve I had is when I would take sleeping pills and I would knock myself out for 7 hours. And when I woke up, I felt decent. And then within 20 minutes, I was back into the lowest states. And it took nothing for me to be set off. And so now the person that's taking the absolute front end load of all of this is my wife. And it was extremely difficult on her, because she started thinking that she was going crazy, because I couldn't have a normal conversation. I wasn't thinking straight. And I appeared normal, but I wasn't normal at all. And I had treated her poorly by going silent for weeks at a time. And it would hurt my heart so bad, because I didn't know why, and I didn't want that. I just shut down. I was unhappy. I didn't know what happened. So I thought maybe the best thing to do is to leave. In early February, I decided to leave the house. Packed up my truck with blankets and pillows and protein bars and everything that I needed to survive in the back of my truck for who knows how long. I had no direction in mind. I had no destination in mind. I just knew that I was tired of hurting others. And the monster I had become through severe depression was doing exactly that, and it was damaging relationships. So I had to get out of here to protect them And that's really how I felt, truly. I couldn't control my behavior, but I was cognizant of the fact that it wasn't healthy. I found this note the other day. When I was in my truck, I was just about to leave, and then I decided to turn around, or to park rather, and run back in the house, and I left my wife a note, and it says, I'm sorry and I love you, Cubby. It's a nickname I've had since I was 2. Please don't call. I'm fine. Take care of yourself. I promise I'm fine. Because I knew if she called me, it would be very, very difficult. And I put that under her pillow so that she would find it in the evening. Lo and behold, she did not listen to the note, and she did call. And it was extremely difficult for me, and I just didn't want to hurt her anymore. But I told her where I was, and at that point I was in the States. It was in Michigan. And I had decided that I was going to drive to Rochester, Minnesota, where Mayo Clinic is. And the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota has the #1 ranked urology department in all of the US. And that's where I wanted to be. I thought, these guys are going to be able to help me. These guys can do it. So I, with the zero brain power I had, managed to get my paperwork together, submit an application, and I got approved for a video call. And but the video call wasn't for a month away. And I was like, I'm not taking this. So I called and got something for 3 days later. My friends, now concerned about me and my mental state, are saying, if you have this call on Monday and they determine that they can't help you, that's bad news. We're concerned that it's going to affect you in a negative way. And we're worried about your safety if you might do something stupid. And I said, I think you're right. So even though my wife and I were not on good terms, she flew out and met me in Chicago. I was staying in Milwaukee at this point, kind of floating around like a vagabond. And she came to Chicago. I picked her up at the airport, and to be there with me while I had this call in case it was bad news and it sent me off the deep end. The call wasn't good or bad. It was very neutral. Like, sir, we have never seen this. What you're dealing with is so rare. We don't think we have what it takes to take your case on here. And I said, don't do this to me. Please, I'm begging you. I'm at my, I don't want to make myself seem unstable, but I am not very well because of this. It has stripped my will to live, and I just want some help. And do you think, I'm in Chicago, I'm close to you guys, I'm 5 hours away. Do you think I could just come see you in person? This was on a Monday, and she said, you know what? I had an opening on Wednesday. Come in and see me on Wednesday. I'll do a physical exam. We'll see what we can do. That gave me just enough hope to get from Monday to Wednesday. After that call, my wife and I went for a walk before dinner, and I saw a bridge, and the urge to jump off was so powerful. I shut down. I didn't do it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought, this is my opportunity. The thing that was holding me back was I didn't want to commit suicide in front of my wife. If it wasn't for Brittany there with me on that trip, I feel that would have been the time I would have acted on something, because it was the most powerful urge that I had to date. Instead, my body shook and tremored at the dinner table. At the restaurant, we sat down, and I inconsolably cried through all of dinner. I can't even remember what was going through my head other than, I feel like the end of my life is very close. And at this point, I wish it would just happen sooner than later. I have the top urology center in the country telling me they have never heard of what I'm going through and they don't think they can help me. But come on in anyways. We make it to Rochester, Minnesota. We check in. I have my appointment. She says, drop your drawers. Let's see what's going on. And she goes, what is this? And I said, I don't know. She goes, it's got to come out. I need to do surgery on you ASAP. It's just causing you problems. So she scheduled me for an epididymectomy that Friday. And I thought, do I go broke and save my life or continue on and try and find a cheaper option? The surgeon said, well, Kaleb, there is another option. We can opt to not go into the OR and I can do the surgery on the bed in my office. Instead of doing general anesthetic, we'll just give you a lot of pain meds. We'll hop you up on Percocets and that should do the trick. And you won't be completely out, but it'll save you some money. They gave me so many drugs, I did pass out. And I had a successful left epididymectomy. And they removed a part this long that should have only been this long. And it had an extra lump in it that should not have had a lump in it. So clearly it needed to come out that nobody back home had discovered except Dr. Jarvie, but we couldn't get in to see him. The Percocets post-op did not mix well with the medications I was on for nerve pain, and it caused my depression to go into, it spiraled downward in the worst it's ever been. And I went crazy. I completely lost myself. At this point, I felt like I had hit the lowest of the lows, like all the rock bottoms you could possibly hit, but I didn't know that there was some serious rock bottoms to come. Surgery took place on February 17th. My wife and I got into a little bit of an argument. I then asked her to leave me in the States and go home on her own. That I was done. I didn't want to be with her anymore, and there's nothing that she could say to change my mind, and don't make a scene and leave me here. And with a lot of convincing, she convinced me, at the very least, that she would drop me off at the Chicago airport. We had about 90 minutes left to get there, and it was a long, quiet 90 minutes. So here I am at the Chicago airport, bawling, slumped in a chair, and I didn't know what to do, and I just stayed in that chair. My phone rang, and it was one of my friends. They bought me a flight home and then convinced me to get on a plane. When I got home, my friends devised a plan that makes a lot of sense now. I didn't quite like it at the time, but they had arranged for my parents to pick me up and then take me into a psych ward. I was not happy. I convinced my parents not to take me to the psych ward because the last time was not a pleasurable experience, and I thought with my surgery, what's best is that I would be in a comfortable bed where I was allowed to have a sheet and pillows and blankets. And so my parents offered me to stay on their couch in their apartment. Well, I did, except things didn't go so well, and I wasn't happy about how things unfolded. So I went on the run again, and I should not have been driving, but I packed my truck up and I ended up leaving again. People want to know where I'm at. I didn't want to tell them. So I end up in Toronto, sleeping in the back of my truck in a parking garage. It's the middle of winter. My anxiety is so powerful, I thought my heart was going to stop. And I was really hoping for that, because then it wouldn't be suicide, but rather my body just gave up. And so I started wandering the streets of Toronto and walking in and out of different hospitals and establishments, trying to find warmth, getting kicked out of a few places, and finally found my way into the emergency department of Mount Sinai, and an angel appeared because I found the right person at the right time I had no reason to be in there. What brings you in, sir? I'm like, I don't know, 170 beats per minute heart rate. I feel like my heart's gonna give out. I suffer from depression and anxiety. I just had a surgery. And they're like, what do you want us to do for you? And I said, I just need a place to sleep. The following morning, I actually had an appointment with Dr. Jarvie to see how I was doing and where things were at, which was a real blessing in disguise. And Dr. Jarvie's office was attached to Mount Sinai. So I was at the right place. So this doctor pulled me into a private room, and she said, I could get in trouble and I could upset other patients, but something tells me I need to help you. I'm gonna let you sleep in one of our stretchers in the hallway. I'm gonna tell security that you're here until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. No one's gonna bother you. Unbelievable. I slept in my clothes and my coat, and I just lied down and intermittently caught bits of sleep here and there. And I show up to my appointment with Dr. Jarvie, and they must have been thinking, you look terrible. And I said, I'm no longer together with my wife. The delay in getting seen has caused me to lose my mind. I said, I'm not trying to be the squeaky wheel here, but I've lost my ability to control how this chronic pain is affecting me. I've lost my hope. Mayo Clinic couldn't fix the other half of the issue. You guys are the only option I have. They put me in a room, and I was in there for an hour and a half, and they went to work and they started going down the list, calling people. Would you be okay to move your appointment back to June or July? We have an emergency case that we'd like to fit in your place. Yeah, that's fine by me. They all rush in, 3 of them, the scheduler and the 2 surgeons. April 4th, 10 a.m. Show up across the street, floor 6. We're gonna get you in for your surgery. You think I'd be excited? Because that's what I thought I'd feel. But I had no capacity to feel anything that wasn't deep sadness. Deep down, I knew that this was the right next step, and it was an answer to prayer. I thought, okay, I'm in. We're moving in the right direction. I had nowhere to go after that. My only option now is to go to an emergency mental health institution and stay there as long as I can, perhaps even until surgery. I'll already be in Toronto. I'll get, meals, not great meals, but I thought this was a great idea. So I drove to a place called CAMH on Queen Street in Toronto, and it's the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. They really know what they're doing there. But I'm still recovering from my epididymectomy. So I'm really suffering in a big way because I have not given it the rest it needs and the support it needed to heal properly. As I pulled into the parking lot of CAMH, about to go in and beg for a bed, I got a text from Brittany that said, how did your appointment go with Dr. Jarvie? And we haven't been talking up until this point. And I was pretty enlightened to hear from her. And that brought me I said it went well. She goes, if you want, we can give this another shot and see if I have capacity to be able to take care of you. If you come home, we will try the new antidepressants and we'll monitor how it affects you this time, and we'll get you healed up from this surgery just in time for your next one on April 4th. So as fast as I could, I drove home. It was 2 hours. And I was happy. So I went and laid down in bed, finally in my own bed. One of the few times in 2023 that I got to lay in my own bed. I was still hurting in a major way. So I wasn't easy to deal with, and it wasn't a great environment. And so I said, okay, well, I have to do something. So I'm going to check myself into a treatment center in Cookstown. And so I did. I signed up for it. It was 4 weeks or 30 days. You were there for a full month, and packed my bags. My friends and then Brittany and I drove down together, and they dropped me off. And I thought, okay, great, this will be a break for Brittany. I'm gonna come out of here a new man. She's gonna take me back, and this will be great. So I wrote notes to my friends and I wrote notes to my wife, apologizing for everything I've put them through, and that I'm in the right place now, and I'm excited to make some progress. I did not last long at that treatment center before I was asked to leave. I was constantly hiding. I would go to the basement with all the lights shut off and go to a corner and sit there for hours till someone found me. I was in a dark place, very suicidal. And after my psychiatrist appointment, she gave orders to Sam H saying, I'm beyond their capacity to keep me safe and I need to be escorted to Cam H. They said, your option is police escort or a family member. They called Brittany. She did agree to take me down. So her and our friends and I drove from Cookstown to Toronto. I get to Cam H. I get an evaluation, and they determine my physical health is worse than my mental health at this point. And they escort me to the emergency department at Mount Sinai for an ultrasound on that area. They found an infection. They put me on antibiotics, and that cleared things up. But I got escorted back from Mount Sinai back to the mental health institution where I was put in isolation. And this really messed me up. So it was a pretty terrible experience. And I snapped into sales mode, and I managed to convince them to discharge me. So I asked my wife to come pick me up, and she agreed. And I didn't want them to change their minds. I was really antsy to get out of there. It was there that just at discharge that I had a psychiatrist say, I'm gonna put you on a high dosage of this antidepressant, give it time, but it will kick in. And it did. So between psychotherapy sessions and antidepressants, that was the turning point in my life that started to pull me out of this black hole. And my wife did pick me up from that facility and brought me home. I fell asleep that night, but the next day I woke up and she found me in the garage attempting to hang myself with an extension cord. And that was the last straw for her. So she called the police, and after some questioning, they escorted me back to the hospital. And I thought, this is it, this is my life. I am not recoverable from this. I cannot get away from wanting to die. So if I go into another psych ward, then I am going to tie the sheets and hang myself off the door handle. And you're not thinking about how it's going to impact other people's lives or anything like that. Or that you are loved, or that you do come out of this. You know, you just can't think that way. Not when you're there in the thick of it. I wanted to be normal Kaleb again. I wanted to be a successful realtor again. I wanted to be a good husband and a good family man again. I just didn't have the ability.
I wouldn't say that I'm completely healed from the mental health journey. From the physical journey, I am, like 99%. Just some residual pain from surgery. Other than that, I'm doing almost every activity I was able to before surgery. But who I've become through all of this is someone I'm proud of. And I don't believe that I would have arrived here if it wasn't for everything that I went through. So as painful as it was, and as hard as it was, and you know, as scary as it is to think that I almost didn't make it, I'm extremely grateful for everything that I did go through and that I did endure, because it led me to here today. And so the number one difference is my faith is considerably stronger, and that's the basis of my life. And my relationship with my children is stronger, and my demeanor has changed a lot, and my patience levels at work and at home have increased. And I just personally like who I am better. I'm conflicted sometimes when I say I'm glad I went through what I went through to get here, and I would never go through it again. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But the very fact that I'm living, the fact that I'm alive today tells me I'm here for a reason. Because if it was just me in charge, I wouldn't be here. But I am here, so I have him to thank, and I'm excited to see what this next chapter in my life holds. And honestly, I'm excited to find purpose. So whether that's using my story to inspire others, to help others, or, using my business as a ministry, or I don't know, but I'm kind of just, I'm following the motions right now, and I feel led. So I'm really excited to see what comes next.
I came through the depression. I was able to taper off the nerve drugs. The April 4th surgery was successful. Still some lingering pain here and there. I've got new scars, that remind me of my story. And that really brings us to here. But now I'm filled with hope and positivity and joy and passion again. And I have been forced to change my whole life, to reevaluate my priorities, to look at what I want to do for purpose and passion, how I want to help others. And I believe that this journey is going to act as a backstory for me to inspire others. And I hope I can encourage others to speak up and share their story. There's no shame in explaining what you came through, especially after you've come through it. But I made a decision in the heat of all of this that I was going to hang on and that I was going to choose life. And I had to affirm that every morning when I woke up to myself. And I had a lot of people praying for me. So this is definitely a God thing. My two best friends, and in Brittany's efforts, they collectively are the reason I'm alive.
Every bruise and every scar makes us who we are.